this video, I'm going to show you how to use nested compositions to create animatable dynamic facial features such as blinks and mouth movements. These can later be driven by expression sliders. Alright, so I've imported everything into After Effects, and as you can see I have all the different layers here ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do is build the main face. I want to actually include the face and the hair on top of his head in the front right here. Okay, so I'm actually going to bring those two together in a composition. I did some tests earlier and I found that having a layer of hair included in the face actually works a little better than having none. I was trying without, but it wasn't working as well. So the first thing to do is shift select both of these, go Control Shift C to create a new composition. I'm going to call this boy face front medium. So here we have our nested composition. I'm going to center this a little bit better. I want to make sure I leave a little bit of room around the head. Okay, so we have the base head. What I also need to do is we need to bring the eyes into that. So we have these little blinking eyes here, and I want to bring them into the composition as well. Okay, so we have these eyes put in here, and let's put those eyes right here. I just want to make sure the eyes are in the right place. Again, like, this stuff doesn't have to be absolutely dead on. It's really to taste, but depends on how you made it. If you really were specific in how you laid things out, it's sometimes important. Okay, the head doesn't quite line up here because I changed the size of the composition, which shifted the head around, so I just have to line it back up. There we go. Okay, I think those are fine. I can get rid of these eyes now. I don't want to have duplicates all over the place. It'll just make things messy. Okay, so the next step is these eyes are actually sequenced to blink. So I want to make a new composition with all these eyepieces in it and not the hair. Control Shift C, and I'm going to call this boy head front blink medium. Okay, and so that has brought all of these guys in together. Now this one I'm actually going to crop the composition in a little bit more snugly. Let's do 1500 and let's try 12. It's probably good. No distortions are going to happen on this layer. This layer will always be this shape and size, so I can have things fitting a little more snugly. The next thing I want to do is I want to sequence these eye blinks so that I can, let's have a look and see them all. I'll make each one take up one frame. So select all of these, press Alt and the right square bracket. I'm going to change my composition length to 6 frames. And then what I'm going to do is if I click I1 and shift click I4 and I go keyframe assistant, I can sequence the layers and it will arrange them in order from 1, 2, 3, 4. If I were to do the opposite and go 4 to 1 and go sequence layers, it would do it from 4 to 1, but I don't want to do that. So it matters which direction you click them in. Keyframe assistant, sequence layers, perfect. Okay, so there's the blink. Now the next thing I want to do is I actually want to create a mask underneath the eye to cut a hole in it so that I can actually animate the eyeballs underneath his head. So I am going to draw a mask to cut a hole in his eyes. This particular method works really well for things like blinking and squinting, but it's not so good when you have to have unique eye movements, like individual eye movements, like winking, where one eye might close and the other stays open. It's not as good either and it's not as good for isolated eyelid movement, like bottom lids coming up, upper lids coming down. It really just covers blinking. It's the best for simple blinking. Back to this mask, we have to change this to a subtract mask. And now the next thing I have to do is I have to animate the mask. I'm going to set mask path. I'm going to press Control Alt H to turn that into a hold keyframe, and then I am going to realign it for every frame of the eye blinking. thank goodness I only have 4 eyes. If I had a lot of eyes, I'd probably do this a little differently, like if I had tons of iframes. But really, in all honesty, you really don't need that many eye. If you're doing a blink, blinks are so short, and you don't want to spend tons of time. Like I did 4 drawings. I used to do things where I draw 8 or 12, and it was always way too many because eyes just, you know, unless you're doing slow motion shot or something, blinks are really fast, and you don't want to draw all those drawings and then have the urge to slow all your blinks down just so you get an opportunity to see your drawings. Unless, you know, it can help though if you're doing really slow blinks, but the kind of style I'm going for, even if I was doing a slow blink, I don't mind the clickiness of frame holds. I actually really like that personally. These characters, I'm trying to make them as handmade feeling as possible. I'm going to finish up this other eye, and come back to you when it's finished so you don't have to watch me do this. Okay, so let's have a look. See how it looks. Great. There we go. We have some blinking eyes. As you can see, his hair looks all weird now because I changed the composition of his head. The next thing I need actually is the shadow of his face in there, of his hair. I want to bring that shadow in. I didn't bring it in. Face shadows here. So I'm gonna grab that. Copy. Let's turn that off. Back to the boy face. I want to have that in there. Alright, so I'm just going to move this hair shadow over. Well, this shadow is supposed to be cast by his hair, so I have to put it underneath there and line things up here. And just move this down a little bit and a little bit over. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Right there. Great. I want to bring up modes. So I need to create another one of these heads, put it above here, and I want to use if I just click on face shadows, I want face shadows to use the outline of the head as the alpha matte for it. So if I just go into enable the track matte, I click on this little thing here and I grab the track matte from the head, and by doing that it uses this composition as a cutout layer. It actually works really well. As you can see, let's turn this gray. Okay, as you can see, that hair, no matter how I move it now, it will stay. It won't come off the sides of his head. Okay, so the next thing to do is I think I want to bring in the eyeballs. Make a composition for the eyeballs. There's my eyeballs right there. Alright, I'm going to select the eyeball here. I just want to select the base. If I select all 3 and try to create a new composition, it's going to make that composition as big as this head comp. I don't want that. I just want this the size of the eyeball itself. So if I just select it alone, create a composition, rename it what I'd like it to be, it should be the exact size of the eyeball. There we go. Okay, so now we just have this little tiny comp here. So what I can do is, instead of having to resize everything, I just copy these guys, paste them. I'll have to find them because they'll be way over here. Okay, there we go. And I switched the order by accident. I'm going to turn this mode off. Okay. Oops. Chinese, and there we go. Okay. So that's one eye. That's his eyeball right. So let's just, we don't need these anymore. And I'm going to name that eyeball right. So I'm not going to put it on, I'm going to put it on his right, not my right. Put this behind his head. Let's get that centered. There we go. Okay, so now he has an eyeball on one of his eyes. So now I'm going to go into the project and I am going to duplicate this and call it eyeball left medium. Okay, and so the next thing to do is let's just drag that in there and also position it okay, nice and close. Looks a little sad right now, but I think that's because his eyebrows are literally on top of his eyes. But I think what I'll do with them is I'll bring them into the face front. This composition is actually where I'm going to be doing all the puppet distortions and all the controllers to essentially drive his face and his expressions. And I may actually even put his eyeballs in here, because I want this essentially, this composition, just to be his hair and his ears. Everything else I want driven inside inside here. So I'm going to copy his eyeballs and I'm going to stick them in here. It looks kind of creepy. Let's put them behind his head. Okay, there we go. And they'll look really good once they're all animated and moving nicely. Eventually I'm going to attach some action scripting into the eyes and everything like that. So let's get these mouths sorted out. So there's one mouth right in the middle of his forehead. That'll go about there somewhere. He's actually animated. Okay, there it is. And I'm going to try to line up the upper lips essentially when I line the mouths up, because it's really your bottom lip that travels the most distance. Great. I think the mouth is a little bit small. I think I'm going to probably try to make it a little bigger. Okay, I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it inside this thing, this guy here. I want everything to do with the main head, the primary flesh of his head, the bone, to be in here. Anything that's really stuck to that main head form will be in here. So there we go. That'll be roughly where his mouth is. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I need to create a composition out of mouth 3, another nested composition. This composition will actually hold the animation for the mouth. So similar to the eyes. So Control-Shift-C, I'm going to call this mouth medium. Maybe I should call it mouth front, because I might end up having a profile puppet as well. So this medium. Mouth front medium. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I have mouth front medium. I want to copy these two, and I'm going to paste them in here. Okay. I might have to make this composition a little wider. It's alright if I do. Okay, so let's make this composition a little wider. Let's make it 400. There we go. Bring these two down to 1 frame each. So I want mouth 1 to be the first one, second and third, so let's do them in order. And then the last one I'm going to stretch out. The reason I stretch out the end frame a little bit is because I ultimately end up using sliders to drive all this stuff, and sometimes I overshoot. And I want to make sure that if I overshoot the frame, my mouth isn't going to just suddenly disappear. So there you go, you can see his mouth opening and closing. Eventually that will be animated onto his face. So there it is. I'm going to press Control-Alt-T to enable time remapping. Alt, I'm going to bring it so it comes to the end of the frame. I'm also going to do the same for his head. Delete these last frames. You'll see why I do this in a little minute here. So, what's going on here? That shadow's disappearing. Oh, right. This too. This probably wasn't the best way to do his head shadow. We're not going to worry about it right now, though. His mouth is doing something weird. Okay, we need to get rid of those two. There we go. That looks better. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to set up the sliders that are going to control his blinking. In the next video, I'll show you how to take those nested compositions and connect them to expression sliders so that they can be animated.